Ladies and gentlemen, let's deal with the Arcane Bear. Another morning coffee episode. Trying this one out for the next week here to see how it goes. Just to see where it lands, I guess, basically. We're going to be taking a look at our favorite chart ideas here. Everything in the bull market seems to be progressing nicely. Right along the thesis we had produced a few months ago, which is when people are dying, start buying, noticing all the excess death rates increasing. Kind of an abstract portion of the market, but to recognize the sociopathic behavior of when economic turmoil is highest, or when there's war afoot, or you find all these excess deaths piling up, it's not a signal to go short, but a signal to go long. A very counterintuitive, but that's the way it comes across. I see some comments rolling in from YouTube and Twitter here as well. Would love to hear your guys' feedback on the live streams. Always interested. Report there. I can see it's going live on Twitter as well. Awesome. Just kind of trying it out again, seeing how easy it is to use these live streaming portions and going through multiple platforms at the same time. So seeing how that works, still in the process of finding out how well it works. Or so what I'm going to actually start with today is not Bitcoin's price, just a little bit of side bit of news here. The bank, oh shoot, here we go. Got to go back for a second. It appears that my BTC share screen, which is this one, is not properly capturing. So I'm going to have to built in Retina for a second. Back to the side. There we go. That should have perfect. Okay. So over here, Bank of Japan finally kills the world's last negative interest rate as yen weakens. One of the things we had kind of constantly spoken about here, or keep going over, is the idea that as each of these localized currencies start to fail, more and more people are going to run to the US dollar. Right now, I've been living in Costa Rica for almost 10 years, and the local economy is struggling because of the way the United States has raised interest rates. It's put a lot of pressure on other countries due to their import and exports. So seeing Japan now be the final and last, I mean, if you see here too, they were basically at 0% interest rates from 2000 all the way up until 2006. They hiked the interest rates up to 1%. That did not last long. 2008 came back all the way to zero. And then in 2012, 2013, they actually went negative. Now, I'm not sure if you know what negative interest rates means, but just let's kind of break it down in a layman's example. Negative interest rates would say, if you're keeping your money in the bank, we're actually going to charge you for it doing nothing. I think the best way to look at currency is like a hot potato. You don't want to hold on for it too long, because its main purpose isn't actually in delivering you a store of value, but an economic, I guess, kind of like electrical current. And like most electrical currents, as it runs through the line, it actually is degraded by all of the friction, the things that take place there. So what many central banks have done, or banks and countries, civilizations, empires, what they've all done in the past is consistently inflated that currency and started to go through monetary debasement, which is what we had talked about in the last episode. And seeing Japan now leave the negative interest rate territory for the first time, I think, is another example of this kind of dirtiest shirt in the laundry hamper scenario, where everyone's starting to recognize that there are some significant problems going on in the markets, and raising interest rates is one of the only ways to try to, I guess, re-encourage confidence in the financial con system that they've set up. They're like, hey, look, we care about our monetary supply, but interest rates unto themselves are not necessarily a problem. It is the consistent creation of new capital. Now, I just by itself, I guess, inflation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's technically a positive thing. As you have more people, more new good ideas, new businesses, you are going to need more capital for each of them to participate with in terms of a currency. Again, that's one of the things I think that's a very difficult conversation is the difference between currency and money because they are in fact different things. So once we get that kind of base sentiment really concreted in our our idea book, we go, okay, so currency and money are two different things. And an asset and money are technically different things, although they have largely in the past been construed as commodities. So, what is both a money and an asset at the same time? What is both a store of value and a kind of a unit of measurement of our global currency standard? I've in the past it was, oh, it's the petrodollar. More recently, people have started to look at data and information as our new age currency unit. And I've heard a few of the next kind of ideas is that compute power for AI will effectively be the new future stable coin. There's some good arguments for each of these. Again, because inflation by itself isn't inherently bad. If you're inflating the currency supply and it is going to productive businesses that do good things for society, that's a net positive. Much of what we see as of that is positive lending and creation of capital. The problem really comes from crony capitalism, which is the relationship between government and banks and corporations to really create monopolies around niches of business and opportunity. Because if you control the money supply and where that money goes, you can just send hundreds of millions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars for bombs over Ukraine. I was going to say bombs over Baghdad, but I believe that's a last cycle's storyline. This cycle storyline, I think, is much more closely related to understanding the difference between what is currency, what is money, and what are assets. Commodities, I guess, kind of is what the word that would usually tie all those together. And in this environment, what is going to be the best way to, I guess, thrive over time? Bitcoin has become our North Star and guiding light for almost over a decade. But I do see a future where that might change as well. What we know of as money today or currency are also artifacts of how fucking difficult it is for our society to generate energy. In fact, if it were easier to generate energy, I suspect that the value of money would go down significantly. You find many other moments in history where there are indigenous cultures who would use things like cocoa nut or shells for their currency because for them largely it was just a token of gratitude. You are such a small tight knit community, you're trading and sharing goods amongst one another, so no need to even barter. We'll just go, thank you for your providing to the community. As time went on and energy became harder and harder to produce, and the leverage of increased intelligence became harder and harder to reproduce as well. I mean, for instance, if one tribe of people has energy and the other tribe of people does not, well, you know who's going to win that war? You have a type of Darwinism through leveraged intelligence as well. What if one species could fly to another planet while the other doesn't, and the planet that one is on gets destroyed? Well, you have effectively what is closed end Darwinism within the ability for an equivalent group of people, basically, say all humans, just with a different understanding of what technology can do on the other hand, and a different understanding maybe of what nature can do on the other. So we've seen stuff like this and there's lots of stories like this, cargo cults effectively. But the point I'm saying, and we kind of went over this previously, is that largely money or currency, more specifically, currency is mimetic because there is no real intrinsic value because there's literally everything in the universe. It exists somewhere, right? So you have massive potentials to find new gold or platinum. All of the resources that we might need can be actually procured very easily. So a lot of what we view as scarcity on this planet are problems that are easily solved once these we present ourselves with those solutions, which makes money into itself almost similar to currency, because there could be a point where you could imagine infinite energy. Now, I've gone kind of far off the deep end to explain something. I'm trying to first off focus on where we are now today, what we think of money, currency, assets, commodities, and the prices of each of those, and the value, because value and price are also not totally clear a lot of the time. That's why, anyways, there's a whole rabbit hole there too between price and value. But ultimately, I think what's the most important part to understand is that as we move forward further and further, I think it's going to become clearer and clearer that Bitcoin is the money of the next, let's say, few decades. I think though we are in an area of one of my favorites to call it is hyper novelty, and I'm not the first one to use this. In fact, there's many writers back that look at what happens when there's so many, I guess, overwhelming points of data to come in. Like, we're just not equipped to handle all of this information. Like, what the hell does it mean that when a country is at negative interest rates, they're just saying, like, we're going to take your money away if you aren't spending it? You're not spending it fast enough. The banks are telling you, the banks have been telling you, as soon as you get capital, spend it on an asset because we are going through the destruction of the currency supply. They're telling you that in the interest rates. Again, the interest rates are designed to create more confidence in the opposing idea of that, which is, we're actually here to protect capital. But if the government is just printing a bunch of it to give it away for guns and bombs, interest rates don't really make a difference. And it's all just a scam perpetrating the same crony capitalism. So the long story short here is Bitcoin is going to remain the money of this ecosystem. And there's a lot of fun stuff that we can find along the way. I wanted to use a bit more of our chart mentality here too for a second. Um, yes, because Bitcoin created, yeah, it's this next LPS phase is taking place. It's so nice to see. Um, I who knows, maybe it gets big and we form a trading range here. Maybe we come down to 52, 53,000. I just don't think so. There's way too much big money in this market for that's what I personally believe at this moment for where we are in the market cycle. Maybe we dip down to 61,000, wick down to 59. We've just had so many strong, um, I mean, none of these SOS retracements have been bigger than 20% effectively. Even from the ETF wick, you're looking at, yeah, maybe 21%. You could see a slightly bigger wick here just to draw out open futures interest in anyone that's over leveraged in longs. Let's say there's 10x longs positions that were built from 51,000 that are still open, stop losses that are hidden there along the way. I mean, maybe we could see a wipeout all the way to 51%, build a much larger accumulation. But from what I've witnessed in the past, and again, not that everything repeats itself identically, once we break out of these larger widening megaphone patterns, it's like Hail Mary to the sky. We're going straight up basically from here on out. So although again, like I've said many, many times, it would be nice to see it as low as possible on Bitcoin. You should be stoked about that. Anytime we see our lower prices in the bull market, it is basically just buy more because it's going to continue to go up. The market makers don't spend an incredible amount of time accumulating these assets just to simply let go of them early and let retail take it over. And from what we've seen in some of our sentiment analysis as well, retail is not really here yet either. So don't expect them to show up today. I think a lot of, again, we are in still we're still in profit taking for the bigger players. Like, don't get me wrong. There is profit being taken here and assets being accumulated, but this longer process of accumulation where you have massive amounts of supply that are being bought up at a significantly lower price. The reason, not the reason, but the net effect of that is that once the market operators know they have control of the asset price, they can basically drive it up as high as they want. And the point of driving it up the price is actually their form of marketing. They're going, look how high this asset price is. It's so good. It's the best asset you ever had. It's the apex asset, so that they can eventually take profit. Because well, and again, maybe not. Where does profit go? And this is again one of the larger, more interesting conversations, I think, is what happens if you start to really reevaluate what is worth something, if per se Bitcoin was to be like the new center money. Like, what if, can you imagine in the future what houses are priced at based off of Bitcoin? It's hard to say. Big cataclysmic events like that are very difficult to measure properly, because you have so many other outliers that often come in. I mean, it's always interesting. People are like, "Oh, it's a black swan." A true black swan is difficult. No one's like, you very not just very few people predicting it, but it was like hyper unexpected, like aliens land and drop off infinite energy devices. That's one of those things that like change the course of of our reality, basically for forever. So, that's a black swan event. A black swan event is not, oh, the electricity went out and Bitcoin's price dropped. That's actually pretty easy to measure. There's a bunch of things, or FTX collapsing. Even that wasn't a black swan technically. I mean, it was fairly easy to measure in to some degree that stuff like that is could happen. So that's more usually what I like to call a gray swan. But there are things like aliens landing. We just have the absolute impossibility to measure what that would do to society for the coming years. Effectively, like a bunch of aliens just show up, like, "Hey, we're from Zeta Reticuli 9. We've got these infinite energy devices. We think you silly monkeys should probably stop warring. Here's a device that only produces energy. We could try to figure it out and solve this problem." Now, I don't think that's going to happen. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not placing bets on that happening. But that's what a black swan would be, is something that I'm not going to place bets on. Like, that sounds ridiculous. The chance of that happening is zero, but it could. There is, even though it's zero, there is like a micro percentage of something like this taking place, which again, that's what true black swan is. So there are moments in our future which we cannot foresee, which could infinitely change the way we understand money, value, commodities, all of these things. We could be on the heels of that. I think every generation has probably thought to some degree or another that it was their apocalypse, or that they're on the heels of total revolution and change, because you're kind of living at the edge of infinite. But that's so yeah, that's true. That is also true. I think it's not an or situation. We don't need aliens to land for this to be like a revolution, effectively. Um, the other point I wanted to go over here, back to Bitcoin, was that again, it's just a hypothetical. At the moment, Bitcoin is the apex asset in terms of money. But if we were to all of a sudden get dropped off infinite energy, money really starts to lose what we've valued it for, which is a store of energy over time. The reason we need to store energy over time is because energy is so important to our lifestyle. You don't, there's no helicopters or planes or jets or cars or watches or computers without energy. None of that shit exists without energy. And the reason we've put so much value there is because it's very difficult to keep energy. If you want to like fly your plane, it costs stuff all the time. But if you can all of a sudden produce an infinite amount of energy, it would be the most deflationary event in history, and it would probably make money and currency the same thing again, because you'd be like, great, we can produce basically an infinite amount of anything for the zero. So why would that cost anything if your production cost is so low? So the point there is, I just wanted to say, we can never measure in black swans. There are gray swans that would come into place. But in a bull market, when you see downs like this is not like nothing bad happened. We're going to be rising. When we're rising on bad news for certain things, we're in a bull market. Don't expect it to be over so quickly. We're just retesting the top of the range. We'll be lucky for whatever price it goes lower, and the big players know that. So it's very likely that whatever happens here is very short-lived, and we'll move on into new all-time highs again in the coming weeks. Again, I would be so stoked if we saw a bigger like reaccumulation range that took months and stuff past the halvening. I prefer that. Took months past the halvening. That would be great, but it's very unlikely because of what set us up into this moment. So again, barring any black swans, like aliens landing down with infinite energy technology, we're looking good. I took the entirety of all of that nonsense to just say the bull market's fine. Like, you shouldn't be too worried. Because the chances of aliens landing and dropping us off infinite energy tech right now is like zero. This is what happens when you have coffee in the morning. Yes, it's you guys enjoyed that rant. Okay, so outside of Bitcoin, what I wanted to do was actually take a look at Avalanche and Solana. So Solana, here we go. Let's look at its larger macro time frame again to get this kind of point to the story out here. We spent hundreds of days in an accumulation range, right? So I remember don't think that it's going to be over so quickly. What we just saw I know there's a lot of drawings here, but let's get rid of it for a second. What we just saw in this price accumulation for Solana and this breakout was its first reaccumulations after like 500 to 600 days of bottom accumulation, moving into our primary SOS and LPS phases. So there's usually 2 or 3 SOS and LPS phases. It's kind of similar to Elliott wave. There is a way to measure some of this growth as well. The PNF charts are the best that I've seen. Um, oh, one sec here, video froze. I wonder why that does that. Still working. Technology always has something random to share with us. Okay, so we're still early in this bull market. The euphoria stage is probably just about to start. This drawdown is nice. There's profit taking, and that's likely going to be used by many players to consistently build. I did love how that Capo turned around and like in his Telegram group basically went bullish the day the LPS started. That was just perfect timing. But what I wanted to again show on the closer time frame is, okay, step by step, barring any aliens landing with infinite energy tech, we are 500 days through an accumulation cycle into first, second reaccumulations above the box, into the kind of the final primary SOS and LPS phases before we go into the finality of ballistic. That you can actually expect to see some levels of what appears to be distribution, but it's usually just an LPS phase, right? So it's very difficult to tell in the final stages the reaccumulation to a distributional trend because of the way they're set up. Now, in the previous market cycle with Solana, you could just say it was obvious because we were up so high. So we're not up high enough yet. This is going to go further, but more importantly, let's use this most recent data again, because I'm sure you're getting good at this now. If you've been following for some time, you're getting good at recognizing these trends, and it's becoming easier and easier to remain profitable for you within your investment and your trading thesis. So beautiful setup here by Solana again. Our primary support, buying climax, secondary test, shakeout, up thrust, spring, our test, our jump across the creek, that jump across the creek test, the SOS and the breakout, beautifully played out. And we are in the final SOS on LPS stages. So I don't suspect this comes too much lower here because we just had a reaccumulation, SOS backup, SOS. This is probably going to go higher. That we're just witnessing an LPS right now. So LPS incoming was what I wrote the other day because we hadn't dropped down. LPS now in progress. Awesome. But this is probably the final LPS and SOS phases before the bull market here. So the lower the better. I doubt that low though, because bigger players want to accumulate. We'll take a look at Avalanche and then at Link actually too, because I think Link is in a really great spot as well. So Bitcoin down at 65,000. Let's go to, okay, so there's a few things that are going on here. Number one, let's go to the 4 hour. It'll give us a clearer picture. So here's Avalanche, 4 hour reaccumulation, beautiful setup. The private updates here, I just loved. They feel like watching it play out almost perfectly. A few extra wicks down further in Avalanche than I would have expected. Clearly a lot of liquidity. We were now in a reaccumulation after decline, which is one of the weaker reaccumulation and breakout phases. But after our jump across the creek, our kind of secondary test here, we are in the SOS and LPS state, or SOS and backup phases. So, and backup phase in progress. Because as we saw with Solana, the backup phase here actually had a really deep retest of the creek. So I think most of the creek retesting for Avalanche was actually already taken out by kind of its middle of the box ranges here. So I started to look a little bit more closely just to show what a backup SOS and backup can look like as a scale invariant function, which again just means no matter what time frame I'm in, I'm going to find reaccumulation or distribution patterns. Now, again, here's where it can be difficult. This could become an upthrust and into distribution if we can't close above the POC. You could see it break down totally. Although, again, I don't think that's going to happen because of where we are in that macro context, barring aliens landing. There's no room for any room for downside at this creek test, which is about to take place. Could come as low as $54 for Avalanche, and I think we're going to rip up to around 60. Or sorry, my primary targets of exit are actually more of a band at this next one. And it's not that the bull market is over; it's just that risk will have increased so much by this next kind of leg up that you don't want to be you want to start to be way more defensive with your profit taking anything in all of the next steps effectively. Should have entered all of your positions. You should be in a more defensive profit taking mode from here on outwards. Not like aggressive, but just defensive if you're playing it properly. Although, mind you, most of the fun is about to start, or it's like it kind of just started the last 3 months, so it's not over yet. They're marketing their prices to everyone else, and they're going to start selling here soon. So the defensive modality is kind of starting to shift, but somewhere between about 120 and $76. There's the PNF charts. I think that Funky shared in our group are super awesome. Again, this beautiful falling wedge into accumulation, spring breakout, SOS backup. We just completed the backup phase and we're about to start the major SOS phase, which could take us upwards of $98 before we see again a new reaccumulation pattern take place, and then the finality of the bull market to come. And that can be much higher. That could be, I don't know how high that could be. It depends. Mania, it gets quite crazy out there. But also I wanted to point out, just for fun, in retrospect, just because sometimes we can be wrong, I remember this moment here. Let's go all the way back with Avalanche to the previous cycle. We actually had a beautiful secondary play come in here. We made most of our entries back near a few dollars, but this one was a house maker right here. Notice this, okay? Long-term accumulation, SOS, LPS, SOS, LPS, that accumulation before the finality of the bull market. And the finality of of this first cycle up for Avalanche was like 300%. So again, well outside of the box into new all-time highs. We're not there yet. We're just in the SOS and LPS phases at the moment. But there was a moment not too long after, and this will be a good future one to pay attention to. There'll be a big price drop in Bitcoin. It could be from, let's say, 150 all the way down to $100,000. And people are like, oh, it's over. A bull market's done. I think we're going to get a secondary reaccumulation range here again. And this was huge in the altcoin sector, because not only you got basically a second chance to dance and play at the whole game again, where from the bottom of the trading range in the middle of the bull market, you had another 6 to 10x. So I think we're going to get another one of those again too. We're not there yet. We're going to have to go higher to come back down that much lower, but I do suspect this will come to pass. That what we're witnessing right now on the daily for Avalanche are, I know it's a little messy because I've got so much drawn up here. I wish I would have kept some of the other previous charts, or I could just scroll back in the private group because they're all saved there. But this long-term reaccumulation, SOS break back up, and then into the new SOS patterns are just taking place. So profit taking anywhere between 76 and 120 to be a bit defensive. I expect at that point some type of larger LPS phase to take place. It'll be really interesting to see what the rest of the market is doing at that point too. And then again, that alignment with Solana is not far off too, that we kind of hit a backup phase, we jump up a little bit higher, and then we see probably a much larger backup phase start to take place after that. And that will probably coalesce with Bitcoin, maybe around $120,000 too. So I suspect we're not long for another new all-time high on Bitcoin, which brings us to Link. So Link, I believe, is in its backup phase here too. Now it's a little bit, Link has had throughout the entirety of its accumulation process a lot of volatility. One, two, let's see, let's just do top touches. 1, 2, 3, Let's use these bottom because they're middle of the range tops too. So, because in most trading ranges, what you effectively do is run from the top of the AR as well. So you have both a bottom and a top of the AR cycle. So we'll include that for this thought process, but that would put us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 touches of the top of the TR before explosion. Whereas with Avalanche, as we saw, we actually went only downwards in price. It made for a great accumulation process for the market priced upwards to be easier, less risk induced for those who are accumulating Avalanche. Whereas Link here, you had a 70% movement up and down multiple times, like 50, 60, yeah, around 50%. And that's what we're seeing again. We're seeing again multiple touches at the top of the TR before finally breaking out. So I think that right now what we're witnessing is kind of the last chance to dance for entries into Link. Bottom up, fuck you, Wix. Strong signs of absorption. Knowing that we're in SOS and backup phase, this is the finality of the backup phase for Chainlink, in my opinion, before we start to go into like a real SOS moment again for Link, probably upwards of $34. Yeah. And then that's again where I think we could see some larger level of distribution, where we have a bigger 30 to 40% drawdown, where we go up to $34, and then we have a real drawdown of like this 24 all the way down here, and then a larger reaccumulation range before the finality of the bull market. So lots of things are kind of saying the same thing. They're just all in different steps of that same story. So it looks pretty strong to me for an indication that, again, barring any aliens landing, as we got to start Earth. I don't know how we ended up starting our thesis off with aliens landing with infinite tech, but that's where it went today. All of our continuations in Solana, Avalanche, Link, and Fetch is a really interesting one too. Already so high up here. It'll be keep a really close eye on Fetch. And actually, Fetch right now is producing a bullish pattern here too. The next step for Fetch, what I would if it follows this kind of more traditional bullish pattern or something like this. So we'll just keep that drawn open like that to see where it brings us. We've seen a few of these before, but I believe we just had basically a up thrust spring. And then we'll probably see the test here at the middle of the TR for Fetch too. So keep an eye on that. I'll leave this drawn up here roughly as well. Was there anything else I wanted to look at? No, that about covers it. Again, LPS is in progress for Ethereum. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. Again, remember, break out of the box, SOS, strong backup phase, followed by SOS, LPS, and then usually another SOS and LPS that become kind of the larger top of the trading range, which lead us into new all-time highs. How much higher? I'm not sure. The bull market is always impressive, so let's wait till we get there before we start trying to call it. I don't want to call the top of Solana or Avalanche either. I'm just saying this is where we start to get more defensive with profits. Not aggressive yet, just defensive. Aggressive is short. We're not long in the tooth of this bull market yet, but we will be soon enough, and it will come quicker than most people think. So, awesome. I hope y'all enjoyed. I'm gonna take a look over and scroll to the questions and comments section. 189 live viewers on YouTube right now. Thanks for that, YouTube. You guys are rocking it. 137 on Rumble. Let's see, 33 minutes live too. I hope you guys you see this. We got a Bitcoin at $100,000 party planned in the near future too. So make sure your bottles of mezcal and Hennessy are already purchased for the day that happens. Hopefully, we'll be drinking before Christmas. Let's just say December 21st for fun. Maybe we will go have a solstice $100,000 Bitcoin party. That'd be fun to see. Let's see. Some of you are asking what could be the Bitcoin top and when to expect it. I kind of went over this in my last video, but I expect somewhere between $140,000 and $240,000. The ultimate Bitcoin top, the long-term Bitcoin top, my very first guess was $6 million. Let's see if I get close to that. I made that guess in 2016. So I stand by it. I think we'll get to $6 million Bitcoin eventually, but probably closer to 2030 when you start to see real hyperinflation hit the street. We do not see it yet today. Hyperinflation is here in assets. Asset prices will continue to skyrocket, I suspect. S&P 500, Bitcoin, all of them will do the same thing. They're going to continue to go up as they debase currencies. And other currencies start to fail. They're going to rush to the US dollar. The US dollar will hold some of its strength, and then eventually it will happen slowly, like it is right now. And then it will happen all at once, where Bitcoin just screams from a few hundred thousand into millions of dollars because the US dollar is not worth anything. And at that point, we'll be all struggling to adjust to what the new valuation of something is. And I suspect that at that point, people will also have a hell of a lot more respect for the real value of a pineapple. You know, it takes 2 fucking years to grow a pineapple, like 18 months. You could make 2 babies in the time that it takes to make one fucking pineapple. I don't know why it is that pineapples only cost $2 when it takes 2 fucking years to grow. That is incredible to me. I definitely think our value to price chain is broken. Largely because of the US dollar, and it's at first most apparent in assets. But there will also be a reevaluation of what the most basic things are actually fucking worth, because I promise you, water and pineapples are worth way more than we're currently pricing them at. But because things are easy right now, that value to price chain is totally confused. And again, I suspect that as Bitcoin starts to end up in the millions of dollars, you're going to see other things go into absolutely astronomical price ranges because they're a hell of a lot more valuable than the price tags we currently slap on them. Things are easy right now. We've taken far too much for granted in terms of our farmers, our water, all that stuff. And although I don't think that this is here today. I think given a long enough time frame, the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see the things we've been talking about come to pass. So effectively, that means no top for Bitcoin. That means Bitcoin could go as high as whatever, however much they decide to print around the world. It'll be really interesting. We're in for one hell of a show over the next 10 years. That's for damn sure. So I'll be happy to live stream a lot of it with you. It'll be a really interesting one. YouTube vibes of Cosmos yet? Never heard of it. You are on target with non-humans from Atlantis located off northwest coast of Africa. Yeah, maybe in Antarctica too. Again, I kind of started, for those of you that are just joining the show, I started the idea with the thesis that a true black swan is something that we cannot factor in. We can factor in certain things like FTX collapsing, even though I didn't think that was going to happen. You could factor it in to some degree or another. There are certain things we cannot factor in, like if aliens landed tomorrow and gave us infinite energy technology, what would that do to the price of everything? Because that'd be like the most deflationary moment in the entire history of the human species. You'd be like, great, so you can fly to Mars on like 5 drops of water. But there's so much water everywhere. The universe is just packed full of H and O. How much could you do? Because so because of that, there are certain things we can't factor in. But barring the total absolute black swan, most of the gray swans at the moment are kind of already factored in, because we are on the side of the gray swan, which is the government is going to debase their currency. They're going to continue to debase their currency. All the governments are going to do that. Asset prices are going to get jacked up into fucking infinity because of it. So yeah, no top for Bitcoin effectively. Because at that point we'll have to reevaluate what things are actually worth to us in that moment. And that might be a planet-wide experience. I'm not sure. I really don't know, but it could get weird once Bitcoin finds its top. This current price range, though, I'm aiming at like 150 to 250K. So I don't think we're going to infinity and beyond just yet. Maybe, but soon enough. So however you want to measure that. But at this cycle, around 200 something. Is Litecoin worth buying? I have a baby Bitcoin thesis from a few years ago that almost all of the proof of work tokens will be valuable in the future. Um, I'm not sure how that thesis plays out in the long term because it hasn't done great yet. Um, but again, I guess for any sentiment's sake, is heads I win, tails I only lose a little. So it's not bad to have like these are like options on. I would call Bitcoin like or sorry, Litecoin like a style of an option on Bitcoin, where it's good to own a small amount of it, or BSV. Maybe sure, good to own a small amount of it, but not a lot of it. I wouldn't be all in on can Craig wrong or something like that. That just sounds horrible. Or Digibyte, maybe, again, small bags here as almost as an option because of the proof of work mechanism there. I think has potential in the future, but again, I'm not totally convinced that yeah, it would be actually it'd be really interesting. I think that there'll be if things start to get super fucking weird out there, it'll get really interesting. So I would call those options bags, and you never buy, but I wouldn't go all in on that. It's just easier to say everybody, hey, we had Tom Crown here. Cool, thanks Tom for joining. Nice to see you again. I haven't chatted with you in a while. Um, thanks for dropping in. I appreciate the support there. That's fun. What else did I want to go over? There's a few other things I had found. Where were they? I think it was on Twitter. If you haven't yet, go to twitter.com, follow us, Arcane Bear, YouTube, Arcane Bear, Rumble, Arcane Bear, all the same thing. Just type Arcane Bear anywhere you want to go on the internet, click follow, share the videos around because it helps other people learn this awesome ranting information about aliens dropping down infinite energy tech. Everybody needs a little bit of infinite energy tech in their morning, so be sure to share the charts far and wide. There's a ton of proof of work coins from 2013 that are now basically worth nothing. Yeah, I agree. Again, most of the proof of work tokens are probably not worth anything, but a small bag there as an option is not a bad idea. I think, like most things in the universe, all of the weight and gravity attaches to one of them. Right. So we live in a galaxy, and the majority of the galaxy is a black hole. That's where all of the shit goes eventually. And then it will collide into some other large, infinitely vast other black hole. So mass has a way of accumulating itself towards one area. So Bitcoin has been doing a great job of that. The tallest trees get all the sunlight and all the nutrients. It's just we have laws of distribution within the universe that are not that are kind of fundamental almost, right? Like the black hole's only going to get bigger. It's going to continue to amass all of the all of the shit that it's in the universe. Um anyways, so yeah, Bitcoin is like a black hole. It's just going to soak up all of the value eventually. But having small options plays like that is never a bad idea because who knows? Um, and even if they go to zero, that's fine. An options play is designed to go to zero. It's more like insurance than it is an investment. Options are designed to be like, hey, if this, then this. So if I own some of this, then some of this might be a great option just in case there is some type of unforeseen black swan that I'm not prepared for. This heads I win, tails I only lose a little sentiment, or the literality of buy when there's blood in the streets is so hard for the average person to comprehend, myself included. It took a lifetime of experience to go, oh, wait a second. I'm finding because I'm for those of you that are in the private group, when I started to find this data on excess mortality, that mortality watch and excess death around the world, this stuff was scary. I mean, I was writing private newsletter updates for you guys, being like, hey, look at this. Like, you have 18% excess deaths over the 5-year rolling average in multiple countries since 2021. And massive increased excess deaths in some countries in 2021 specifically. What does that do? And part of my, if you read back to my newsletters there, if you were in the private group, we talked about it somewhat in the live streams as well, is that you need to do the opposite of what you think is the right thing. In the pandemic, when they're starting to declare people are falling over from some unknown disease from videos of China, instead of running out and buying toilet paper, you should run out and buy Bitcoin and literally every asset that you could get your hands on, because from that moment onwards, everything went up. They also printed a shit ton of money, which helped that inflationary process. But otherwise, it might have taken another year or two for it to like move forward again. That one was expedited by the money printer. But this sentiment is so much more difficult because if you only hear the words "buy when there's blood in the streets," as in contrast to experiencing blood in the streets and then buying through that moment, you start to realize the kind of sociopathic hat that you have to put on. We went over this in one of our other videos that the best time to buy in the previous bull market cycle was the day they declared a pandemic, and the best time to sell was the day they declared the pandemic over and masks became no longer mandatory. So that you don't always have to watch the charts to understand where you are in the sentiment between fear, oh my God, this unknown disease, and greed. We're fine. Greed here was just normalcy, basically. We are all just greedy to get back to some fucking type of normal where we could fly around the planet and spend all the money we just made. So well, I guess what I'm trying to highlight here is that there's a specific function of how we feel during the market that I can give you quotes like heads I win, tails I only lose a little, which is really this kind of really distilled version of what exponential growth feels like in a simplistic format that you can take where you don't have the experience. I remember before having the experience of a blood in the streets moment, which was 2021 for me specific, or 2020 specifically for me, that I had always equated like, 2008, people are like, they're losing their houses. So maybe they're going to like commit suicide or the markets are down. It's just red candles are blood in the streets. I thought it was, it's just more strictly a metaphor. But if you think about it and through the experiential, it is a literal format that you can grasp without the experience. You can literally transfer the idea of value to someone else by going, hi, I buy when there's blood in the streets, without actually having that experience. So it's a little confusing sometimes because you need the experience to have the confidence. Because if you're just repeating a sentiment but don't have the experience, there's generally no confidence for you to be there going, oh my God, people are dying at a fucking massively accelerated rate in 2023. Let's go long. You need to be going long right now because more people are dying than ever died before is a really kind of sociopathic thing to think, but it's what worked. It's to go, oh my God, the Palestinians or Hamas is attacking Israel, haha, go long. It's very illogical to think, but it works. And it only works when you go through the experience. Now, I'm trying to share this with you, the visceral reality of it, because you can take that experience, you can take that axiomatic function that's been stored or distilled into like a quote of heads I win, tails I only lose a little, and use it without the experience by practicing it first, and then live the experience after you've done the practice, right? You don't need to know about enlightenment to sit down and meditate for a minute and go, wow, that was actually quite positive, to clear the mind for a second and to hear my breath and to be grateful for each moment that was passing. You don't need to have reached enlightenment to understand its experiential value, just by repeating the practice. So you can repeat the practice of buying when there's blood in the streets, literal blood in the streets. And you can also repeat the practice of heads you win, tails I only lose a little. And I think a lot of the times, if you do that, the exponential growth of a portfolio is much easier because you can go, cool, I want to risk a little to potentially make a lot. So I wouldn't bet everything on Litecoin. I said all that to say that I wouldn't bet everything on Litecoin, but a little bit, if you think it's a good idea, is always smart, because you can only lose a little. So why not lose a little for the risk of potentially exponentially infinite gains? It makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Free American says, just followed you. Great stream. Jungle stroll around the coffee and fire pit OG styles. Yes. I actually could, tell you what, we'll do a few more like just quick little update and rant videos as I'm feeling things again. Maybe I'll even record them through the phone for old time's sake, the way I used to when I first started this channel, with no expensive $7,000 camera or whatever, beautiful microphones and preamps, just raw jungle sound through a fucking pixelated video. I actually saw that my video on DMT was one of the most viewed videos I have on my channel. It's like close to like 80,000 views or something. And to see long-haired Tio with my mustache and like I swear it was like, it looked like 8 pixels held the entire video stream stitched together. Wild stuff, wild stuff. So anyways, experiential practices, practicing distilled experiential axioms. Yeah, hyper valuable to do. So let's take a look. Where were we at now? Awesome. Yeah. And perfect little picture for Avalanche here too. Again, look at this. I thought this was such a beautiful representation. Here we go. Avalanche just finished its creek test this week, and it's about to fucking scream into its nest. I hope your bags are already packed for this one, because it's about to go for another leg up. You might see that in a few of these. You may have already completed the LPS phase for Solana here too. I don't think it's done yet. And Link looks like the perfect spot for an entry before it goes ballistic. Actually, look, kind of reminds me of some of the movements Ethereum did. So yeah, here we are again on the only the 5 minute. Jesus, let's go back to the 2 hours. So this looks a little cleaner. 5 minute TO. What is wrong with you? Okay, so here we are, a reaccumulation as our backup phase. Up thrust test. We just jumped across the creek. We just had a really nice creek test. It looks a little bit clearer on the small time frames, though. It does. All the way back down to the point of control almost. I think even if, let's see if we give it the wicks, do we come all the way to the point of control? Let's find out here in a second. On this week's almost back to the point of control at $54 for Avalanche. First SOS and backup phase, I think here too. Kind of an abstract structure, but we're in the backup phase, so I think this makes the most sense. And we just go straight up to around $80 from here, I bet. That's my current guess. So if you haven't built a position already, don't, or just understand that there is risk involved here. Like you should have been entering the position way back here. At least across the creek test, I think seems to be the best place of entry. Creek test seems to be the most lucrative with the least amount of patience necessary, where you can have 60 to 70% gains in only 10 to 20 days, which is really what everyone's looking for. Everyone just wants to know how to get a 6-pack in a week, right? So this is how you make a house in 22 days. Awesome. Yeah. So all the charts are shaping up beautifully. Avalanche, it looks like the most primed to go at the moment. But everything is going to likely continue from what I can understand. So Love Stonk says your pineapple rant is the best thing I've seen all week. Thanks. I appreciate that. I love pineapple. We just picked one fresh from the garden the other day, actually. Look how fucking glorious this pineapple fresh from the garden is. It's so amazing. Another few days of sitting and this thing is ready to go. This took 18 months. I planted this one myself. This took 18 months. It is so crazy. And then just because some of you probably don't know this, if you just rip, I don't want to break it. Oh yeah, you just rip the top of the pineapple off this. You plant this, and then this is how pineapples are grown. I'm sure actually a lot of you probably don't know that, but here, fun little tidbits with Tio on Tuesday. Should have a tidbits with Tio on Tuesday episode where I just talk about random shit like how to plant pineapples. So this is a pineapple top. This is actually how you grow more pineapples. You just want to rip the bottom leaves off of this motherfucker like this. Oh yeah, rip off the bottom leaves. This exposes all the beautiful little roots. I love how we can just bring the jungle inside. See, I don't even need to bring the jungle to the camera. I don't need to bring the camera to the jungle. I can just bring the jungle to the camera. And the bottom there, all those little things, those are actually roots of the pineapple plant. You let this sit in water for maybe like a week, all the roots will start to grow. And you can actually plant this, like you could grow this inside your house in most countries. So the next time you buy a pineapple and it still has this top on it, make sure to rip off the leaves, drop it in some water, plant it in a planter, and you will have yourselves a beautiful little like pineapple cactus in your house. Now it might not fruit because you don't live in the jungle necessarily. You live in some cold ass country or state like New York where pineapples will not fucking grow right now. You can still plant it inside your house and have a nice, beautiful kind of like adornment plant or something like this. So There we go. Just a little bit of a pineapple rant. I know that was kind of went off the. We were talking about something specific. Oh yeah, the true value of how long it takes to grow a pineapple. Awesome. So there we go. That's pretty much our hour morning live chat. I guess if you wanted to share anything in the live chat, let's see. Oh, more instruments you would also like. There we go. Um, nice. Great to see so many of you guys coming back for the bull market. What's up with Ethereum? It looks perfectly in its LPS phases. That's what I think is what's up with it. I would love to come to Costa Rica for the pineapples. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm here. Oh yes, Ivan Camp says pineapples are full of bromelain, which is great for inflammation. That's true. Actually, that is very true. Bromelain is one of like the strongest anti-inflammatories. And I think a lot of people make pineapple tea. Um, yeah, it's not timing the pineapple; it's time in the pineapple. That's great. I need a shirt that says that. I think. Um, Did your XRP tweet get more action? That's I made a funny sentiment yesterday. I wanted to y'all might enjoy this. Yesterday, follow me on Twitter or X here. Are we live on X right now? We are live on X right now too. Awesome, good. I made a joke yesterday speaking about how the it seemed like the stupider things get the most traction. And I was making a joke how that I should the dumber the things I do, the richer I get, or something like this. And later on in the evening, I was sitting down with Iris. We watched, found a movie called, I think it was called Black. I don't remember the name exactly, but it was um, this is a great it was a great film, of like a tragic comedy almost. But one of the things I thought that was really interesting is it was this about this book writer who would write all these like really eclectic, high brow, eloquently spoken, like vast dialect and lexicon, robust vocabulary, and everything that's being used to describe like a particular idea set, to the point where most people would just think you're poshy. You're like, oh, you're just talking shit. Like, you're not even using words I understand, motherfucker. And then he found this book that was going viral. And it was a book that was like kind of trashy, or he thought it was trashy. He was like, why is all the cultural music like rah, rah, Balenciaga and Gaga, like all this bullshit? Like, people ain't even saying no words. So he decided himself to write a book that was just like what he considered to be lowbrow trash, and it just exploded. It became like a bestseller, and he started to get all these movie deals and stuff like this. So at one point, he just decided, there's an explanation of like, look, you know, Johnny Walker makes Red Label, Black Label, and Blue Label. He's like, most of your books are Blue Label books. He's like, for the first time ever, you wrote a Red Label book, and people love Red Label because nobody wants to spend a bunch of money on this thing where you're using words where most of the motherfuckers do not understand those words. So I was making a joke about how how the less vocabulary that I would use, or the more popular I would get. So I'm just gonna make. What's the stupidest tweet I could write right now? It's like XRP to $5. Because I just don't think it's possible. Now, again, maybe it is possible. Maybe if we get into a hyperinflationary moment, anything is possible. But at that point, you'd have Bitcoin at $6 million. So does it really matter or something? The point of this being, should I write like, do I need to figure out how to write Arcane Bear's fucking Johnny Rocker Red Label so there's shit that's more interesting to a larger group of people? Because I clearly don't know how to accumulate the masses. I accumulate a very niche, highly eclectic group of rich people who like DMT, pineapples, and Bitcoin. It's like my friend circle right there can be summed up in BTC and DMT effectively. Um, so because of that, it's yeah, I was kind of trying to make a joke. It didn't do great. It didn't do great. Let's see here. What did it how well did it do? Oh, I don't see it. Oh, XRP to $5, 29 likes. So not amazing. Um, s Still more than some of the others. It's just that's more than the video I posted. So, yeah. I posted this nice long video breaking down the markets, 18 likes. XRP to $5, 30 likes. Neither of these are great. And that's all poor engagement to begin with. How do I have 17,000 followers and only get 16 likes? Like, do y'all hate me that much? Nah. I'm pretty sure YouTube, Twitter, I think even Twitter is today probably put me on some blacklist for something. Either that or I just don't know how to make Johnny Walker Red Label. Yeah, there we go. We need a daily update on the XRP tweet. Yeah, I could try making an XRP video. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll try to make an XRP video and see if it like outpaces the normal videos. And I'll be pro XRP. So for just for a minute, everybody that's already here that already knows that I don't really like XRP. Or rather, heads I win, tails I only lose a little. I think all investments can fit under that. And I think then XRP is a great investment because you can only lose a little. But if you stand to maybe lose a lot, you're probably doing it wrong under at least my books there for XRP. But nonetheless, I'm gonna do an XRP video, and I'll pretend that I'm like a big fan of XRP. I'll find a bunch of things that are pro XRP. I'll be like XRP to the moon, um, and then actually tell you what I'll do. I'll make two videos. I'll make one pro XRP video, and then immediately after, I'll make a video of XRP why it's going to go to zero, and then see which video does better. And then because I don't have no like me and the XRP community ain't tight in any way, shape, or form. So if I like build a relationship with them and wreck it all in a week, I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. But I'll get to see really quickly how well the traction does on those videos. So we'll give it we'll give it a shot there. You guys say you love your show. Pineapple makes a good household cleaner too. I did not know that. Okay. Could you give some insights on what percentage you would put into Bitcoin as a select few altcoins? Well, it depends how risky you want to play. I think the risk bucket should be separate than the investment bucket. Like, I think you can invest in Bitcoin. I don't necessarily think making some of the plays you made is investing. It's more like venture investing, which the likelihood of losing something is actually very high. Which is why these strong sentiments around heads I win, tails I only lose a little, I think is so important. With Bitcoin, you just put all your money in there every day, day in, day out, and I think you'll do fine. I think Bitcoin as a long-term investment will do amazing, actually. Whereas something like Avalanche, we're still kind of in the gray area. It feels more like venture. You're early on, especially when Avalanche was down at $1. But that's where we like to start. We like to start down to the idea where it's hyper risky. You could lose a lot, or you could lose everything. So we don't invest a lot, but you can make a lot from only investing a little. So it's um, I would look at them differently. I wouldn't look at you're saying, well, what would I put into altcoins? I would look at them as a different thesis entirely. I wouldn't even include them in the same percentage allocation because they're not the same basket effectively. Bitcoin feels more like you're buying a house or something. You're like, oh, I'm gonna have an asset that I want to keep for the next 10 or 20 years. That's what Bitcoin should feel like. And as the price goes up, it gets closer and closer to actually being a price of a house too. So keep that in mind that assets like this versus venture capital, which is really, really offshoot. You're looking for 1,000x, 100x potentials. I don't think Bitcoin probably still has 100x into it, but again, that's during hyperinflation, which is going to be just wild to witness. But um, awesome. Well, there's the another hour long TO live stream on Tuesday morning. Thank you all for the support today. Appreciate that. Remember to like, comment, share your videos all around. Appreciate the support, even if we have differing interests in XRP. I still love you. Um, I love you if you're wrong. I hope you love me if I'm wrong still too. This is Deal with the Arcade Bear signing off for the rest of the day.